Hey everybody, this is Ryan McClanahan with HistoryThroughCards.com. I hope you're all doing very well today. My last video I was doing on Tony Taylor and his 1970 Topps card I thought was really interesting, and I got a lot of responses to it. So guys, thank you so much. It's always fun to interact with people about these cards and learn more about them, and because I don't know everything. And one of the things I didn't really know a whole lot about was something that was in Tony Taylor's Irish Sports page, and that was the 1964 Phillies Phold. I've heard about it a little bit briefly, but I just didn't know a whole lot about it. And I had told you guys that I was going to cover that in my next video, which is this one. And when I was doing some research on this, I came across a very interesting set from the Philadelphia Bulletin from their evening and Sunday edition, and I wanted to share that with you guys today. The artwork is absolutely amazing. Of course, I'm a real big artwork kind of guy because I went to school for that, and the art in the 1964 Philadelphia Evening and Sunday Bulletin comes from James Jim Ponter, and he's really more well known as a sculptor. He was born in 1923 and passed away in 2007. So he actually did other stuff too for like magazines and stuff, but this I thought was really cool, and I wanted to showcase some of his artwork here for the Philadelphia Bulletin. The Bulletin itself was founded in 1847 by Alexander Cummings as Cummings Evening Telegraph Bulletin, or telephonic telegraph. I don't know. Jesus, English is like a third language apparently. Telegraphic. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, we'll go with that. Telegraphic bulletin. So uh, this is kind of interesting too because 100 years after, in 1947, the Philadelphia Bulletin had the largest circulation in the country, which I didn't know about. But again, that kind of makes sense because like that's when everybody read the newspaper. Today, nobody reads newspapers. It's very, very rare. And I grew up reading newspapers since I was a little kid, and I kind of knew early on that that's what I wanted to get into was journalism. And again, today journalism has just taken a giant slide, just to put it mildly. I could go on forever about uh, journalism just not being adequate for the average American citizen. Most of it is online, so it's difficult being a journalist today. Let's just put it to you that way. And there's a lot of spelling mistakes and grammatical errors, which just absolutely drive me crazy. Um, and that's what happens when you start reading just a lot of stuff, which I do for not just for this channel, but I read everything. And unfortunately, a little side note here: when I do my research for these videos and try to do research on the players, I'll come across an article, but then what will happen is that I'll just read the entire newspaper. I spend a lot, probably way too much time reading newspapers and articles in general. Uh, but again, like another side note here, if you can get your kids to read at an early age, the better off they're going to be, I think. And I did. I always woke up to seeing my dad read the newspaper when I was a little kid. And the Philadelphia Bulletin tried to make a comeback in 2004, and for a while it succeeded. But like most other newspapers, it seems today, the circulation just wasn't there, and they tried online, and even their online edition just it didn't go anywhere. So unfortunately, not too many people are reading these days. Getting back to the Phillies Phold here, I found a really interesting article from SABR that I wanted to tell you guys about today and kind of explore this. And again, I am a member of SABR, a longtime member. The written accounts and research of SABR are amazing. Like, those guys and girls put in a lot of work to get out articles and information on the subjects that they cover, and that could be anything from ball players to stadiums to a certain historical aspect or to statistics. There's so much that SABR does, and that's my plug for SABR, and I'm not being paid for that. Let's get into the 1964 Phillies Phold. This is from SABR. September 27th, 1964. The Phold. Phillies' seventh straight loss drops them out of first place. This article was written by John J. Burbridge Jr. It had been a terrible week for the Philadelphia Phillies. On Sunday, September 20th, after beating the Dodgers in Los Angeles 3-2, the Phillies had a 6.5 game lead over their closest pursuers for the National League pennant, the Cincinnati Reds, and the St. Louis Cardinals. After that win, the Phillies returned to Philadelphia in Connie Mack Stadium for a 3-game series beginning on Monday, September 21st, against the Reds. The Phillies had an opportunity to lengthen their league lead. However, the Reds opened the series with a 1-0 win on Chico Ruiz's steal of home in the 6th inning with Frank Robinson at the plate. The Reds then won the next 2 games, and the Phillies' lead was now 3.5 games. The Cardinals lost one of 2 games against the New York Mets, so they were now in 3rd place, 5 games behind the Phillies. There was no reason to panic, but the Phillies needed to get back to winning against the Milwaukee Braves, who were coming to Philadelphia for a 4-game series. The Braves, although not in pennant contention, were a formidable opponent featuring future Hall of Famers Hank Aaron, Eddie Matthews, Joe Torre, and Warren Spahn. The Phillies' collapse continued as the Braves won the first 3 games, while the Reds won 3 in a row against the lowly Mets. As the Phillies prepared for their Sunday game on September 27th, their lead, which had looked to be unsurmountable, was beaten to a half a game over Cincinnati. The day before, they had lost in excruciating fashion as the Braves wiped out a 4-3 Phillies lead with 3 in the 9th. If the Phillies lost the Sunday game and the Reds won their doubleheader against the Mets, the Reds would be in first place. The Phillies had been in first place since July 21st. For the Sunday contest, the Phillies called upon their ace, Jim Bunning, an 18-game winner so far. This was Bunning's 4th start since September 16th. He was pitching on short rest, having started the first game of the series on Thursday night, pitching 6 innings in a losing effort. The Braves countered with right-hander Tony Cloninger, who had 17 wins. The Braves scored 2 runs in the first inning when Felipe Alou and Lee May both got hits, and Hank Aaron drove them in with a double. The Phillies got on the scoreboard in the bottom of the inning as Tony Gonzalez doubled and scored on a single by Dick Allen. The bottom of the second, the Phillies took a 3-2 lead. Clay Dappelmeyer led off with a double and scored on Tony Taylor's triple. Taylor scored on Bunning's fly out. The top of the 4th inning proved to be Bunning's undoing. The Braves scored 6 runs on 7 hits. Joe Torre led off the inning with an infield hit. Rico Cardi and Dennis Menke followed with singles. Menke's driving in Torre. Ty Klein doubled in Cardi, and Cloninger, a good hitting pitcher, blooped a single to center field that scored Menke. Manager Gene Mauch replaced Bunting with Dallas Green, who gave up a double to Felipe Alou that scored Klein with the fourth run of the inning. Lee Mays' single drove in Cloninger. Green got Hank Aaron to hit into a double play, but Alou scored from third base. The Braves now lead 8-3. The Braves scored 4 more runs in the fifth. Green retired the first 2 hitters, but the next 6 hitters reached base against him on 4 singles, a double, a wild throw, and a walk. The big hits were singles by Cloninger and May, and a 2-run double by Felipe Alou. The Braves led 12-3 as Green was replaced by Maury Stevens. Johnny Callison led off the bottom of the 6th for the Phillies with a home run. Cloninger had retired 8 Phillies in a row. After Callison's home run, Cloninger retired the next 3 Phillies. The Braves scored a run in the top of the 7th on a wild pitch by Rick Wise. The Phillies threatened in the bottom of the 7th, but did not score. Joe Torre led off the top of the 8th with a home run off Jack Balchin, the Phillies' 5th hurler. Chichi Olivo replaced Cloninger in the bottom of the 8th and was greeted by Callison's 2nd home run of the game. Tony Taylor's singled in another run, and the score was 14-6 entering the 9th inning. The Phillies scored 2 runs when Dick Allen doubled and Callison hit his 3rd home run of the game. After Callison's homer, Wes Covington struck out looking, and the game was over. When Cincinnati swept its twin bill with the Mets, the Phillies found themselves in 2nd place, a game behind the Reds. The star of the game for the Braves was Tony Cloninger, who gave up 4 runs on 7 hits in 7 innings and got 2 hits and 2 RBIs. He was backed by the timely hitting of Lee May with 5 hits. Felipe Alou and Joe Torre also had 3 hits each. The Braves shelled Phillies hurlers for 22 hits. Before hitting his first home run in the 6th inning, Johnny Callison decided to once again stuff a wad of chewing tobacco in his mouth. He had been a user several years before, but gave it up at his wife's urging. He was chawing on his same tobacco both of his 2nd and 3rd home runs. His 3 home runs gave him 31 for the season. Dick Allen also had 3 hits for the Phillies. In post-game interviews, there was considerable discussion as to the mindset of the Phillies. Catcher Clay Doppelmayr raised the issue, saying, quote, "I don't think anyone out there is choking up. I haven't felt any pressure. I mean that," unquote. However, manager Mauch seemed to be feeling something as he snapped at reporters. "What do you care how I feel? I'm sick and tired of hearing my own voice, especially the last 7 days." Bobby Bragan, the Braves manager, observed, "There's no question they're feeling the tension. You gotta feel sorry for them." Callison added an optimistic note. "We're going to bounce back. I believe that. I really believe that." The Cardinals defeated the Pirates and were just a half a game behind the Phillies. The fact that the Phillies lost the National League lead earned a headline on the first page of the Philadelphia Inquirer, although the release of the Warren Commission report naming Lee Harvey Oswald as the sole assassin of President Kennedy overshadowed the account of the Phillies game. After the game, the Phillies were off to St. Louis for a Monday night game opening a 3-game series. They lost all 3, and their losing streak was extended to 10 games. Cincinnati lost 2 of the 3 to the Pittsburgh Pirates, and the Cardinals were now in first place as the teams entered the final weekend. The Phillies still had a shot at trying for the pennant if they won 2 games in Cincinnati, and the Cardinals were swept in a 3-game series against the Mets. Surprisingly, the Phillies were in contention to tie for the pennant as the games began on the final Sunday of the season. The Phillies had come from behind on Friday night to beat Cincinnati, while the Mets won the first 2 games against the Cardinals. While the Phillies won on Sunday, the Cardinals defeated the Mets and won the pennant, with the Phillies and the Reds tied for second, 1 game behind. The final 2 weeks of a bizarre pennant race had finally ended, one that Philadelphians will never forget. That was really fascinating. I would have loved to have seen any of these games. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall to see the 1964 World Series. The Cardinals went on to win the World Series that year in 1964 against the Yankees in 7 games. And I think that was the last time there was any meaningful contention of the Yankees in a World Series up until I want to say like the late 1970s. This again was really interesting, and there was a lot of names here that I'm very familiar with. Wes Covington, he's really known for the Braves, and Gene Mauch, obviously the manager. He's been up for Hall of Fame, I think at least once or twice, and I think the only thing that's really kind of keeping him from being a Hall of Famer is the '64 Phillies Phold, but he has the most wins of any manager not in the Hall of Fame that I'm aware of, not including like Terry Francona and maybe a few others currently. They bring up Connie Mack Stadium, which I think was torn down in 1970. Connie Mack, he spent a lot on his ball club back then in the 1910s and 1920s and 30s. But the Great Depression happened, and he had to sell off a lot of his ball players. I think a lot of those guys went to Boston, and so he had said later on that it was a real big mistake that he sold the first dynasty off, and then he had a smaller dynasty in the late 20s and early 30s. Anyway, I get all over the place with this stuff, and it's fun. I really enjoy talking about baseball history more than anything else, I think, and the players too. And it's kind of interesting that they talk about Hank Aaron a little bit here, and um, a few other of the Hall of Famers. Joe Torre, his rookie is in the 1962 top set, and Joe Torre, we all kind of forget that he was a player. At least I forget that he was a player. I think for me, he's more well known as a Yankees manager, and he had success as a ball player and especially as a manager, but he had some lean years too there. I seem to remember that he was a manager of the Braves at some point. Anyway, guys, I thought this would be really interesting to cover, and I'd love to hear what you have to say in the comment section below. And in the next time, I will talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye.